Welcome to Richie's Roost. Beautiful blue sky day. Frost this morning, shirt sleeves this afternoon. Typical Mississippi weather. I love it. I'm going to introduce you today to a very special person to us. A close neighbor. Matter of fact, he just lives right across the road from me. His house faces my house. He's been here about 20 years. He and his wife built a beautiful home over there about 21 years ago, 22. He's a true educator, as was his wife. We didn't get around to talking about her, and I hate that because she was a valuable member of this community too. I think you'll be impressed with the very fact that he was so successful having come from where he came. You gotta admire a guy like him. And we didn't put an awful lot of time on his 3 sons either, both of whom he's very proud of and with plenty of justification. Matter of fact, one of them just won a major award. We'll talk about him. That was Dale. The other one got his PhD there. The 2 youngers are engineers, and the older is a PhD. Came from Willie and Bobby. And this will give you an idea of where they came from. I think you'll be impressed. I hope you are, as much as I am. He's a friend and a valuable member of the Shockoe community. So, we will, with that, one more thing, 2 more things actually. While I was doing this video, everything in the world went wrong with all of the equipment. The little tripod that I had the camera on, all of a sudden just decided to drop one side, so that screwed that up, and you'll see that drop. You'll also get a glimpse of my fingers as I tried to straighten it up, and then finally just held it by hand. So just overlook that, if you will. My budget is very, very, very slim. So I'm the engineer, and I ought to give everybody pause. The other thing is, next week, I have scheduled another very good friend and one of the leading pediatricians in the United States of America. I think you will be impressed with her, for sure. So, join us then next week. She's going to be talking about babies and younger people and their brain development, among other things. I think any parent and grandparent will be very interested in what she's got to say. So, until then, I'm Jim Ritchie, and we will see you again next time. Well, good morning from right across the street from Richie's Roost this morning. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine who happens to be my across-the-street neighbor in Shockoe, Mississippi. Meet Willie Killins. The Killins family has just been friends of ours for a long time. I can't remember the year you first moved in out here, Willie.
201.
201. So you've been here for 20, well, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
21 years.
Yes.
Friend of ours and good neighbors.
Yeah.
If you have ever seen anybody who exemplifies the traits of grit, determination, perseverance, and family loyalty, you're looking at the man who epitomizes that. We're going to get into some things that you're going to be, I think you'll be impressed with what this man has done. Willie, you're originally from where?
Noxapater, Mississippi. That's Winston County.
Winston County.
Yes.
All right. And you are the 4th oldest of 10 children. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The oldest son.
Oldest boy.
Yes.
You had what, two other brothers?
Yeah, I have two other brothers, 7 sisters.
2 brothers and 7 sisters.
Yes.
Well, let's start when you were 8 years old.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yes, we can. When I was 8 years old, my father left us with our mother. He just walked off and left us, and we didn't know where he went, what he was doing, or anything. And so, being the oldest son, I had to take charge of the farm. We had a farm, 80 acres of land there, and part of it was used to raise cotton and corn and truck patches. So I had to, at that time, take charge of running the farm because my sisters, who were older than I am, they didn't know anything about hooking up mules, plowing, or anything like that, and so therefore I had to take charge. Along with that, as you know, living out in the rural area in the country, we had fireplace. That's the only heat that we had at that time. So, and also you had a cooking stove. So in order for those two things to operate, you had to have wood to do that with. And so therefore someone had to cut the wood. So there again, that was my choice that I had to do that. But I have to give my oldest sister credit. Everything that I went to do, she was right there with me to help me do it. Because at that time, you know, she was stronger than I was because 8 years old, I wasn't that strong at that time. But every step I made, she was there. So if I went to mend the fence because we had cows, she was there to help me get the posts and tie the wire back together, and you know, so that the cattle could stay inside. But I have a lot of folks laughing about it. At that time, I was a part-time student. And the reason why I was a part-time student is because of the things that I was telling you about there. I had to get the wood for the home so that we could have heat. Then when it came time for season to plant, I had to, prepare the soil for planting. And back then, you didn't have tractors. Back at that time, I had to go into what we call a turning plow. That's where you turn the soil over in one direction, and that we're breaking up the soil.
Yeah, but you would that plow was being pulled by
2 mules.
2 mules.
Yeah, yeah, right. And at that point, we had what we consider the 2 mules were named Emma and Jim, and Jim was the male, and he was a calm mule. Emma was kind of wild. Yeah, she didn't want to, she'd run, and you just have to let her go until she get tired, and then, you could go with her. And she was so strong that what I had to do at 8 years old, I didn't have that much strength, turn one line loose and just hold that one line and let her go around and around until she got tired, and then I was able to go ahead and do what I needed to do at that point. Therefore, it goes back when I mentioned the wood. You had to get the wood to the house. So we put the wood in the wagon, and the 2 mules would pull the wagon to the house. Now, if you had to come down a hill, Emma wasn't going to hold back. Jim was going to hold back, so your wagon going one side. So it was for an 8-year-old, that was really, really tough.
For you all out there listening to this now, we're talking about an 8-year-old kid taking care of all of this, part-time going to school because you had to do all of these things.
Yes.
Your mother was a school teacher.
Yeah,
right?
she was a school teacher. And that was one thing that I have to be proud of, is because, we talk a lot about a one-parent family. And, we'll say this kid came from a one-parent family, so he's not going to be able to do this and that. That wasn't my mother. She was a no-nonsense person, which means she expected you to do what needed to be done. And she always told us, you can be whatever you want to be. The only thing that you have to do is to put in the work. So what she would do for me, when I would come in at night, she would say, son, get your books. No matter how hard I had worked that day, she said, get your books. And that's how I was able to stay up with my classmates and things and pass and go on to the next grade. Because back then, there was no rule that said you had to be in school X number of days. You just had to make sure you was able to pass the test and so forth, and you could go to the next grade level. And that's was the way that I operated during that time.
So what she did the tutoring that of the classes that you missed in school,
Right.
So you were kind of going to school part time and letting her teach you part time.
Yes,
right?
that's right. That's right.
Well, I don't know what happened to us here.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, just hold on just a second. I'm gonna hold this by my hand, so I don't have to worry with this other thing. I'm tired of. We have had all kinds of technical problems this morning, everybody. So I'm gonna hold this just like this, Willie.
Okay.
And we're gonna forget about all the rest of this other stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, as I was saying, my mother was a no-nonsense person, and she believed that if you put in the effort to do what you wanted to do, there was nothing to really stop you from doing it. And so she believed in education, and she made sure that all of us went to school, and at the same time, just not going to school, she wanted you to learn while you were there. In other words, I learned from her, which I always told my students, that if you don't learn anything, then you didn't do the work that you were supposed to do. Because that was your job when you went to school, was to learn something. And if you just learn one thing each day, you had 180 things new that you had learned for that year. And that meant a lot to us to do that.
Well, now you actually graduated at the top of your class. Too,
Yeah, for my
elementary school.
Yeah, right? In my elementary school, I was the valedictorian for my class, and one of my teachers didn't like that. She told the principal that he's not going to learn a speech for that, and so I learned the speech. She was also our pianist, for the school. And so on stage that night when I was saying my speech, I'd say a few words and I'd look at her. I'd say a few words and I'd look at her. And so when we was going home that night, my mama said, son, why did you do that? Everybody saw you do it. I said, well, she shouldn't have said I wasn't going to learn. And so my mother didn't say anything else. She went on. Man. Yeah. So,
well, all right. Then you go to high school.
Yeah, I went to high school, and there again, I had to miss days from school, and I played basketball, and the coach, football coach, wanted me to play football. And my mother said to me, son, if you get hurt out there playing football, what are we going to do? And that made a lot of sense to me because that meant we wouldn't be able to operate the farm and so forth if I was hurt. And so I wouldn't play. But the coach didn't like that. So he wouldn't let me come out and watch them practice. Told me, you stay in the building. If you come out here, you better have on some leather. And I knew he meant it. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to get in a fight with him because if I did, who gonna get suspended? That's gonna be me. Mm-hmm. So I just stayed in the building. And so then I decided to play basketball. And I remember we went to Kaliesco. We were playing Kaliesco that night. We got there, and so my coach, we all was ready to go, and I was starting one of the starters. And he didn't call me to start this game. So I was wondering what's going on. I didn't say anything. I just sit there. And as the game was going on, we began to lose. And it was about 2 minutes to go before the game was going to be over. We was behind by 6 points. So the girls' basketball coach came over there and said to the coach, "Why you not playing Willie? You're gonna lose this game if you don't play Willie." And he called me. He said, "Son, come here. I want you to go out there. I'm gonna tell the players to throw you the ball, and I want you to drive to the basket. Don't shoot no long shots. Just do layups." And so we did that, and I tied the game up in overtime, and we went into overtime, and we won the game. So we went back to school that Monday. I decided I wasn't going to play anymore. And the reason for that is because I felt that my coach let the coach that didn't like me come over and tell him not to put me in the game, don't play me. He said, play the guys who come every day in practice. That's what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And so the coach that Monday asked me, he said, "Son, so why you not out here with us to practice?" I said, "I quit." He said, "You can't do that." I said, "Yeah, I quit." And the reason why I quit, if he'd have made that decision, it'd have been okay with me. But to let someone else come in and tell him what to do, that wasn't okay with me. And so I just quit the team. So that was the end of my athletic career.
But you graduated from high school in 3 years, didn't you?
Well, no, it was 4 years. But yeah, it was college that.
College, yeah. Then you went from high school to college.
Yeah, to Jackson State. And how I did that was that I had to work when I went to Jackson State because my mother had no money to send me. But my mother said I should go to college just like all the other kids. Some of the folks in our community and even her brothers said I shouldn't go, said I should stay there and run the farm and take care of her. And my mother said to me, she said, "Son, you've done what you're supposed to do. You going to college." She says, "You don't have any kids here. These are my kids. So you going to college."
Boy, she was some kind of person.
Yeah, she scrapped up enough at that time at Jackson State. The tuition was $55 a quarter. We was on a quarter basis. Got the $55 for me, got some food together for me to eat, and so I went off to college. As soon as I finished high school, I came on down to Jackson. I had some cousins down there who was working at the King Edwards Hotel at that time. And the one that was working there, he had talked to the management there and told them that I was coming. And so he had a job for me there. So I worked that summer. And that also gave me a chance to earn the money to pay for my books and my room and board, for that. And so that was how I was able to get out in 3 years, because as I worked at Heidenberg and other hotels, King Edwards, Heidenberg, and then I also worked at Stonewall Jackson, that's on 80 there. That gave me the opportunity to earn the money that I needed to pay my expenses. But I also took courses in the summer at the university. So that was how I was able to get out in those 3 years.
So you were working full time basically and going to school?
And going to school, right. Sometime I would get off of work at 4 o'clock in the morning and have an 8 o'clock class. So it was rough, but I knew that was the only way I could stay there, was to do that.
What did you major in?
I majored in elementary education. And the reason why I majored in elementary education, one of the things my mother emphasized to me, when you go down there to college, I want you to major in something you can get a job in.
Well, you minored in math?
Yes, minored in math.
So.
And she says, because a lot of folks go to school and they major in something that they can't get a job in. So you need to major in something you can get a job in. And at that time, you didn't have that many men that was majoring in elementary education. They were either majoring in secondary education, where you work at the middle school and high school. So as soon as I finished within those 3 years, I had a cousin that was working in Starkville, and he was a principal up there. And he came by and told me, he said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I have a job for you." And so we went up to Starkville, and the superintendent interviewed me and said, "Yes, we'll hire you." And so I had worked a year when my classmates got out of school, but I did go back in March with them. Uh, and after working 2 years there with my cousin, I decided, well, the first year I worked with it. The second year I decided that I needed to continue my education. So I went and applied for Mississippi State. This was back in '66 when I applied to go to Mississippi State. Um, and everything was in that I thought was in, but I got a call one Sunday evening about 4 o'clock and said one of your letter of recommendations didn't get in, so we're going to have to deny your application to the graduate school.
Oh, you were trying to get in graduate school?
Yeah, I'm trying to get in graduate school.
Yeah.
I wanted to continue, going.
Right.
They said to me, says, we'll give you till 4 o'clock Monday to get another letter in. Well, back then you didn't have cell phones and that type of thing, and so I didn't know who didn't send in the letter or how I'm gonna get this done. And so I just went to work that Monday, and so I was thinking about it all day. What can I do to get in? And something just hit me and said, go ask your superintendent to write you a letter of recommendation. So I went down, and when I got to the office, the secretary would say, "Hi, Ms. Skillings." I said, "Hi." He said, "What can we do for you?" I said, "I'd like to see the superintendent." And she said, "Do you have an appointment?" I said, "No, I don't." She was getting ready to say, "Well, you're not going to be able to see him." Well, fortunate for me, and I don't know how this happened, but he had his door cracked. And he heard me talking to the secretary. And he said, "Oh, that's Mr. Killings out there." He says, "Come on in." So I went in, and I don't know why I had my lesson plan book with me, and I had it under my arm, and I don't know why I had that. And so I go in there, and he said, "Oh, I see you got your lesson plan book. Let me see it." So he looks at the lesson plan book, and he said, "These are great plans. I wish I could be there to see you teach that." He said, "But that's not why you came down here. What can I do for you?" So I said to him, I'm in the process of trying to continue my education. I want to go ahead and continue my education. He said, "Yes, yes." And I said, and then I told him about the call that I had received and what they had said to me. And he said, "Yes, yes." And I said, I need you to write a letter of recommendation for me. And he kind of looked at me and he kind of said, "I haven't been here that long myself, but just like you." And he says, you actually asked me to put my job on the line. And so I just kept looking at him. And he said, "What I'm going to do, I'm going to get one of the board members to write that letter of recommendation for you." And as he was talking to me, I just kept looking at him. And he says, "You know what? You didn't ask me to get somebody else to write that letter. You asked me to write that letter." He says, "And I just looked at your lesson plan books and everything, and I know you can do the work out there." He said, "I'm going to write that letter for you." He said, "You go on home. You're going to get in." So he got the letter in before 4 o'clock, and I got in and started working on my master's degree in administration at that time. I would see he was working on his doctor's degree at the time out there, and I would see him on campus, and he would ask me, say, "Willie, say, everything going all right? They treating you all right?" And everything. I said, "Yeah, I have no problems, and anything." So everything went well for me. But back in my hometown, which Louisville was considered, because they had moved my high school from Noxapater to Louisville, so Louisville was considered my hometown at that time. They would tell my mother, "Your boy up there at that white school." And so my mother, they just keep telling her that, and she was kind of afraid for me. She thought something was going to really happen to me. Um, but what I did, uh, I went to Columbus, and at that time they had these Woodworth stores where you could buy anything in the Woodworth stores, and so I went in and I purchased a weapon, Snug Nose 32, and they registered for me and everything, and they told me, gave me specific instruction of what to do. That you could not put it in your glove compartment, you couldn't put it under the seat, you couldn't put it in your pocket. You got to lay it on the seat where it can be seen. And nobody could do anything about it because it's legally registered in your name. And so after that happened, I guess that got around to everybody, and they didn't say anything else to my mother about it. Because when I went home, I told my mother what I had done, and the words that my mother said to me, she said, well, son, I know you're not going to bother anybody, but if you have to go down, you won't go down by yourself. And so that's how I ended up in Milwaukee, because my mother and my oldest sister was just having a fit about it.
About what now?
About they considered that to be threats that they kept asking my mother about me being up there.
Okay, and at Mississippi State?
Yeah, Mississippi State. Now, these was nobody at Mississippi State was doing that. That was my hometown.
I see. Your folks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so, but I have to give the credit to my superintendent, which his name was Buchanan. He didn't want me to leave, and he and I can understand that, because, like he had said earlier, he had put his job on the line and everything for me, and now I'm leaving. But
well, now by this time you'd gotten your master's at Mississippi State.
No, I didn't get the master's there.
Okay.
No, I only had gotten 6 hours on
I see.
my master, and once I left, I was getting ready to leave, and Milwaukee had said to me if I wanted to work there, I had a job, but I had no contract. And the reason why I had no contract, my superintendent wouldn't send in my work experience.
Oh,
well, because he figured, and I can understand that. I had no grudges against him, because I just thanked him for what he did do for me. But I called Peter Brim, who was the guy in Milwaukee, who had said to me that I had a job if I wanted to there.
How did you get to Milwaukee? Why? How in the world did you just get up there?
Well, doing teachers convention down here, instead of coming to teachers convention, I went to Milwaukee and had the interview. And that was at the time that Mr. Brim said to me, if you want to work here, you have the job.
Yeah, but how did you know to go to Milwaukee?
My sister lived in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
My oldest sister, the one that I'm telling you that was having a fit, she lived in Milwaukee, and her and my mama was every day talking to each other and wanted me to
I see. Okay.
to leave, because they just was uneasy about what was going on. But I called Peter Brim based on what my principal had told me, that I needed to call and find out why I didn't have a contract. And so when I talked to Peter Brim, he said that your superintendent said you were committed to work back there next year. And he said, did you sign anything? I said, no. Did you sign anything? I said, no. He asked me that 3 times. And I said, no. He said, well, don't sign. You'll get your contract tomorrow, airmail. And so that's how I got my contract, was through that method.
Well, we're going to have to move along here. When you went to Milwaukee, you taught what, math up there?
Math and science.
Math and science.
Yeah, that was what I was. But in Milwaukee, it was just math. I was teaching math and science down here. And I went to the middle school, grades 6 through 9 was what was at that school. And so it was supposed to be the toughest school in Milwaukee. Teachers was not able to stay there unless you was really strong. Yeah, it was. I mean, the building housed about 2,000 middle school kids, and that's way too many kids at a middle school to be there because what was happening, the kids, so many of them look alike, they would do something, and if you didn't catch a hold of them and hold them there, they got away from you, you weren't going to be able to identify them. And so that was and they knew that, and so they would do stuff, and then the structure of the building was poorly constructed. It was you had an entrance on every side and in the front of the building that you could come in from the outside, and so that was the problem. A lot of outsiders would get in the building.
I see.
And when the outsiders would get in there, then they would cause problems with the kids that was inside the building. And then you'd have all these ruckus and stuff. And then the outsiders, once they get that going, then they run back out,
When did you get to be principal of the
uh,
schools?
that was back in '86 when I was.
You taught up there for a while, and then they promoted you.
Yeah, I taught for 13 years. And then I also was a supervisor for 5 years. And then I was made principal of Lancaster Elementary School, and I worked there 13 years. And then they came and asked me to go to another school that was having problems. It was a Montessori school.
Well, now this first one you was having some problems that you were in too. You turned that around, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we turned that around. It was part of the problem with the first one. The school was integrated, and everything, but we were not getting any history for the African American students, like Martin Luther King, programs and so forth. They were having none of those at that time. And so I set up to have the Martin Luther King program, and PTA members, the president came in and said, "Mr. Killens, can I see you?" And so she came in and was sitting down and was talking. She said, "Well, instead of having the Martin Luther King program, I think you ought to have a presidential day, And so I looked at her and I said, "What black president do you know?" Because at that time we had no blacks at that. And she just kind of looked at me, and so I said, "We're going to have a Martin Luther King program." And so we did. We set up, and the program was not just for the black kids; they were for all the kids. And what we did, the characters that we had the kids to play, we used both white kids and black kids. And once those parents came in and they saw that, they just loved it. They loved it. And ever since then, we were participating with the Martin Luther King Day. We'd have Halloween programs where everybody dress up in a Halloween costume. We march through the community and so forth. And so the parents just loved it. And part of the problem that was there, I talked with my staff and I said to them, we're not going to suspend kids. This is an elementary school. We're here to work with them. And, we had some staff members who would complain that these kids are doing this and that. And one of the things I said to the staff, if parents had better kids, they would send them to you. They sent the best they had. So therefore, we got to deal with what we have. And if we suspend them, send them home, what it does, it put the kid behind 3 days. And they're already behind. So when they come back, you're not going to be able to catch them up with where they're supposed to be in the program. And so the staff agreed with me that we would work out a plan, whereas if a child misbehaved to the point where instructor would have to send the child out to me, then I would place the child in another room. That instructor would have to send work with the child. And so the child would do that work in school. And so we didn't suspend student, we'd have 0 suspension.
Yeah.
And so that worked out, and the parents really loved that. Now, and what I would do, I would have to have the parents to come for a conference so that they would know what was going on. Well, you're going to have some parents who say, I can't get to the school, and this and that. And I say, well, I'll come to you. So I would take the child home, and a lot of the kids did not want me to do that. Yeah, because they didn't want me to see where they were living and the condition under which they were living.
Yeah.
But to me, that was important because that would help me be able to deal with them in the proper manner. Because once you know where the problem is coming from, then you know how to work to try to solve that.
Well, you turned that school around, and then they sent you to another one with a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
The other problem that they sent me to was Greenfield Montessori School. Now, Montessori, that's a different type of program where the students start school at 3 years old, and you have 3 grades in one class. And that way, what it is, the older kids in that class help work with the younger kids. So that's how you're able, with Montessori, they believe that that's the way it should be done. And it worked that way, but you have to have the kids to be self-disciplined. They have to be able to do that. And if they can't do that, then that's not the program for them. Mm-hmm. When they sent me to that school, the administration was receiving, they said 50 calls a day from that school. And they didn't want it to get in the newspaper because they knew sooner or later it was going to get to the newspaper. And the superintendent said I was the person, for that job. And I said to him, when I signed on as principal, I said I go where the district needs me. And I remember that. But I said to them, I'm going to be retiring in 2 years. So you need to send somebody who's going to be there at least 5 years to implement their program. And the superintendent sent back the word, I need him to go now. If you're not going to be there for 2 months, I need him to go now.
So your reputation had preceded you there.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, look, we got a couple of things we need to get to.
Yes.
You met your wife there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I did. I met my wife, who was Bobby, there. I met her through a friend of mine. He was one of my fraternity brothers, and she came. His wife and Bobby was just like sisters. They were real close friends, and he invited me over to meet her, and we met. And from that point, we started to dating and going out, and things just got serious. And I need to point out that during that time, because I left Mississippi, they would give me a deferment to work in the schools, so I didn't have to go to service as long as I was in Mississippi. But then when I left Mississippi, they got angry at me, and they voted unanimous not to give me a deferment. Not one person voted in my favor. And when that happened, you can't appeal no more, because everything is silent against you. And I didn't know that. In Milwaukee, all the teachers were getting deferments and stuff, and Milwaukee was trying to give me a deferment, but my local board said no. They just said no, and they voted against it, and so they was going to send me to Vietnam. And so so at that time, Bobby was working with me. We were trying to get all the resources and stuff we could to stay out of Vietnam, because I didn't believe in the war in Vietnam. I didn't think that was helping us to be in Vietnam. So one day when I was walking out the building, one of my fraternity brothers, he looked at me and he says, Brother Keller, is there something wrong with you? I said, what's wrong with you? I said, well, they're getting ready to send me to Vietnam. He said, what? I said, yeah, I got my papers to go. And I did leave out a couple of things there that what folks have said when you go and take the physical test. There are some things you can do that you will fail.
Well, had they put you in the Army at this time? Had you been
They were getting ready.
getting ready to put you in the Army?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so when I went to take the physical in Milwaukee, I had been told that if you just take some soap and eat that soap, and that soap will leave a black spot on your lungs, and then they won't take you. Well, that didn't happen. I tried that. That didn't work. Then the next thing I did when I went in for the paperwork, to take the exam, I didn't read anything. I just marked because I'm trying to fail. I just marked. Well, that didn't work because they knew I was a teacher, so that didn't work at all. And so they had given me a date to report. And so, as I said, my fraternity brother, he says, "There's something wrong with you, Brother Killen." He says. So when I told him that they were going to send me, he said, "What?" He says, "Are you a member of the NAACP?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, give me your money." I became a member of the NAACP, and he said, "Tuesday night, the board is meeting. I want you to be there. They're going to take your case." So we went down there, and everyone voted unanimous to work because they said other teachers are getting deferments. Why this man can't get a deferment? And so they sent telegrams to all of the senators and congressmen in Wisconsin, asking them to look into the case. And 2 days before I was supposed to report, I got a letter from General Hershey, who was in charge of everything at that time, saying disregard that notice until further notice. And that's the last I've heard from him.
Well, now you and Bobby, we lost Bobby last year.
Yes.
Your wife,
Yeah.
and we miss her still.
Yes.
Y'all part of the group out here. And you and she had 3 boys.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
All of whom I have met, and I am impressed. And the education genes in the Killen family went on to Willie David Jr., who just got his PhD. Is that not right?
That's right.
And then the other 2 boys are still up in Milwaukee or in that area.
Well, the second one is in Bolingbrook, Illinois.
Yeah.
He's an engineer. They work with the power company in Chicago there. That's the one.
The one. Yeah.
And then Dale, he's in Michigan, and he works with Ford Motor Company.
He's also an engineer.
He's an engineer too, right.
So you got 3 boys, 2 engineers, and 1 PhD type
right.
in education.
That's right.
Who are following in their father's footsteps as far as being outstanding folks.
Right. My youngest son, he decided he's going to go back, and he will be getting his master's degree in June here.
That's
this
Dale.
year. Yeah, it's Dale. Yeah. Right. And he felt he needed to do that because the position that he's in, there are some of his workers under him who have their master's degree, and he thought that he needed to do that in order.
Well, by the way, I looked up, Dale's is the engineering supervisor of the steering mechatronics and electro-hydraulic systems for Ford Motor Company. So he's kind of in charge of the steering bunch for the, I suppose, the Ford F-150.
Right, the big trucks, right.
So he came over and talked to us the other day. I couldn't believe how important and how incredibly detailed that kind of thing has to be, because it's got to interfere with everything else in the truck. Right?
That's right.
Well, Willie, we're gonna have to kind of shorten this off now. That's a heck of a story, man. You got a real story, and just an example, I think, for a lot of kids that really ought to take a look at this and say, you know, he did it. I got it from 8 years old, plowing behind a mule,
Yes.
all the way up
Right.
to where he is now.
Right.
And of course, you've been retired now for what, 20 years or so, huh?
Yeah, I retired in '98. Right.
So, and we're glad you did, and we're glad you're in Shaco, and glad you use your tractor a lot of times to pull me out of a ditch more than one time. You know,
Yeah.
and I'll come
Well,
pull
you did the
out,
same for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, that's what friends are for.
Right.
But it's been a heck of a story, and I appreciate your letting me do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut this off right now, and you and I may go have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and before
Okay.
you cut it off, I'd just like to say, as you said, I lost my wife back in August, and we had been together. Would have been 54 years if we could have made it to Christmas of last year, but we were not able to make it. So 53 years we were together, and it was 53 wonderful years. And for my advancement, she was right there, and she was pushing me every step of the way to go ahead. She always said, if when I said I want to do this, let's do it.
Well, she was a wonderful person,
Yeah.
and she was one of our favorites too.
Yes.
Okay, brother.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Okay.